Hi, I'm Louis, and I'm your corporate story coach. And for the next few minutes, I'm gonna cover a topic. Now, I was a chief storyteller for a couple of decades, actually, and in that process, people would often ask me about stories. You have so many stories that you tell. How do you keep all these stories apart? How do you just ramble these things off? A major part of using stories in a corporate environment and in your life is story listening. In fact, I could tell you as a storyteller, most of my time was spent story listening and story discovery. So what I want to invite you into is this concept that as a storyteller, as someone who uses story techniques and what it is you're about to do and how you're going to help communicate value and how you're going to get people to move along a journey of belief, a lot of that time is going to be spent story listening and story discovery. Now, what I mean by story listening, all too often we have an idea of what the answer is. We think we know the answer, or we have answers available to us, and we're just waiting for someone to ask the question. And it's very much like a pharmacist. If someone walks into a pharmacy and says, I need an aspirin, a pharmacist will say, yeah, I've got an aspirin. What kind would you like? And you pick off the shelf and give the person an aspirin. Whereas a doctor would probably ask the question, so you need an aspirin. We have aspirin, by the way, but could you tell me a little bit about why you need aspirin? I'm curious. And they go, oh, well, because I have these tremendous headaches. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Headaches can be awful. Tell me more about your headaches. Well, they're debilitating. Man, sometimes I just can't get up in the morning. Can't get out of bed. Really, this morning time is most effective. Is there any particular? Oh, Monday morning. Monday morning's the worst. Man, Monday, I have to drag myself to work, and my head's pounding, and I just haven't found anything to do that, so maybe an aspirin can help me. As a doctor now, I have learned more about what that person's going through. I've listened to their story. I've not just taken their requirement, but I've actually taken and pulled from them and invited them. Tell me a little bit about what's going on. And from that, I might be able to tell, well, let's explore what you do on Sunday nights. Let's talk about what Sunday nights look like. It could be that Sunday nights are affecting your Monday morning. And if we deal with something there, then maybe you don't need an aspirin. Maybe there's something else you need. So the concept is be a doctor, don't be a pharmacist, especially if you're recognized as a person who has the answer or should have the answer. People will often invite you into that, and you just can't just jump for the answer. Story listening, the best thing I can do is remind you of this. Story listening is about listening to understand, not listening to reply. Okay, listen to understand. It's not about listening to reply. All too often, as the expert, as someone who, for instance, knows what's going on, and they're coming to you, and you're honored by them actually coming to you and asking for advice, you're often listening for keywords, or you're listening for them to say certain things. And when they say those words, it's like a light bulb goes off, and you go, I know the answer to that. I know the answer to that. And you're saying to yourself, if they'll just stop talking, I'm going to answer this question for them. You need to understand, be quick. Don't be quick to answer. Listen and continue to pull. In fact, I use a little acronym, WAIT. Why am I talking? And I can't tell you how many times that I have little notebooks that I carry, and I write down notes when people are discussing things. And in the margin of a lot of these notebooks, I have the word wait. Because while we're in discussion, I'm anxious to jump in and say something, and I remind myself, no, wait, why am I talking? And you listen intently to what that person has to say. And from that, you can draw bits, and you can find little clues, and you begin to ask them more. Well, tell me a little bit more about that, or what does that look like? And in fact, as you're doing that, what you're trying to do is you want to listen to their story. There's an old saying, you can tell a culture by listening to its story, and you can change a culture by changing its story. And as you take, and you're looking at people and trying to move them along a journey of belief, they have a story in mind. They have something that they're currently doing. And most people don't want to change. Change is uncomfortable. And what you're trying to invite them to do is to think about changing, investing some ideas, investing some time, some effort, whatever it is, to move them to a different place, to move them to a place of betterment. And that's going to require them to invest into something. And so what you want to do is you want to understand, what is your story like now? And you want to tell them that, or have them understand what that story is. And then you want to bring them into what your story could be like. So as a person says, well, I have some problems, I have some difficulties with workflow at our company. We just need a workflow system. Well, tell me what that looks like. If you don't mind, tell me what that looks like when the workflow is not working. Notice I didn't say, tell me your requirements for workflow. I said, tell me what that looks like when it doesn't work. Give me an example. Well, when it doesn't work, things just go haywire. Can you give me an example of a day when that happens? What were you doing? Make them relive something. Have them live out their story. And by the way, This is not seen as being inspecting. You're not inspecting, you're curious. So this isn't about you drilling into why do you need this, what is it you think you need. This is I'm really curious and really want to help out, so help me understand. So this workflow problem that you have, what does that look like? It doesn't work, so what should it look like? What would you like for it to look like? If you were able to do these things, what would that look like? And the idea is you use terms like, look, what is it? Let's play with this idea for a minute. Let's play with what if, and you begin to describe. So what you're now describing is what the future story looks like. If you can have them understand what their current story is and agree to the fact that, yeah, that's my story. That's really what I'm living with. That's what I'm doing. And then you're able to say, imagine, if you will, what this looks like. Imagine this over here. And kind of a technique that you can use, which I love doing, which has to do with puzzles, okay? I mentioned in an earlier video that I have 8 grandchildren. And we as families, when we get together for holidays, we often will take a large dining table and we'll pour out, a 10,000 piece puzzle on that table. And that's where we as adults sit and we put this puzzle together and we're talking to one another and catching up. And people come and go. Well, the little kids come in and they try to work, but it's just too big of a puzzle. It's too small of pieces and it's really difficult for them. But they like to participate, but they get frustrated really easily. So what we've learned to do is we'll take a piece and we'll put it up on the cabinet. And that's Lily's piece. That's Lily's piece of the puzzle. And heaven help you if you're lost and you're trying to find that piece because it's up on the china cabinet. But as we finish the puzzle, there's that one piece that's missing. And we take that piece down and we call in Lily. And Lily comes in, she takes that piece and she climbs up on the table on her hands and knees on top of the puzzle. And she looks at this blank spot and she takes that piece and she moves it around until it clicks into place. And when it clicks into place, she has done that puzzle. In her mind, she has done that entire puzzle. It's done. No matter that we did 9,999 pieces before that, that one piece is what clicked. You yourself have probably had that same experience where you finish the puzzle for things. A television show, they're leading you through, there's a mystery, there's something going on, and you see what the end is like. You've guessed it. I guessed who this person is, or I guessed how this is going to end. And then when it happens, you get a bit of reward. It's like, I finished that. If you can take your listeners, the people who you're moving along a journey of belief, if you can take them to the point that they finish the puzzle themselves, that's a much more memorable and much more impactful time. So you have this problem. This is what it looks like today. Now imagine if you were able to do this, and if you were able to do these things in this way, what would you be able to do with your time? What would you be able to do that you can't do today? And you may already know their business. You may know them well enough to go, you can get more customers, or you can spend more time doing this, or you can have less You know what the answers are, but don't you just fill in the puzzle. Imagine if you were able to do this, what do you think are some of the things that would mean to you? And let them fill in the pieces, okay? So invite people in to fill in those puzzle pieces. Don't be in a rush because you know the answer. Let them come up with the answer. Those are things that you develop as a story listener and as a story discoverer. You want to discover their story, but you also want people to discover their own story. And one last point on this, a key point to this, is as you're doing this, be very careful about the language you use. I'm often listening to people that communicate, and we will often stand in front of someone as the experts, and we'll say, thank you for the session. We're here to talk about something. Well, when I grew up, my dad would tell me, son, I need to talk to you. That never ended well. That just was a foreboding of something that wasn't going to be pleasant. People don't like to be talked to. Invite them in. Use words like, for the next few minutes, we're going to share. For the next few minutes, we'd like to explore something with you. We want to invite you in. Not just, we believe this. This is something we believe. No, we'd like for you to consider. We invite you to consider this. Let's play around with some ideas. Use language that shows that you're curious and that you're bought in and that you're more than just being forceful and being, just pounding at things and selling. You never want to be thought of, I'm trying to sell you something. I'm going to give you the opportunity to buy. In my mind, it's not about selling you something. It's about just giving you the opportunity to buy. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay out our stories in such a way that I believe we've painted the story really well. And through conversations, I'm just going to invite you. If you want to participate in buying, perfect. If you want to participate in approving this, moving on with this, that's great. So think about the language you use. Listen to one another. And as a story listener and as a storyteller, tape yourself, record yourself, watch your language, and see how you're actually inviting people in and welcoming them to their own story.